अरे आज संडे है ना, लिविंग लेजेंड डॉक्टर अमीत पतकी का प्रोग्राम है ना।
अजी वो तो सीजन 1 खत्म हो गया।
अरे इतने जल्दी खत्म हो गया? सिर्फ 4 एपिसोड में, और आगे?
अब सीजन 2 आए तो बने ना कुछ बात।
Yes, I'm back. Join me for an exciting season 2 of The Living Legends with Dr. Ameet Patki. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Season 2 of Living Legends, brought to you by Science Integra and Cipla. I'm your host, Dr. Ameet Patki. This season is dedicated to women influencers, women who have not only excelled in our specialty, but through sheer hard work and determination have also worked for women empowerment in general. Our first guest on this season is somebody who's perpetually cheerful. But beneath the exuberant exterior is a woman with steely grit and resolve. A lady who has achieved more than most in our field of obstetrics and gynecology, particularly in infertility and ART. She comes from a family background of legal luminaries, happens to share her birthday with the father of the nation on 2nd October. Please join me in welcoming our first guest on season 2 of Living Legends, Dr. Sadhana Desai. A very good morning to you, madam, and thank you so much for coming on our show. It was after a lot of persuasion that you agreed to be on this show, but I'm so grateful that you have consented to share your journey in this field of obstetrics, gynecology, and infertility.
Thank you very much for the honor.
As I introduced you, you come from a family of legal luminaries. So how did you choose to have your vocation as being a doctor?
When I was about 6 or 7 years old, my mother told me that Sadhana, you are good in your studies. So when you grow up, you become a doctor. I think you will become a good doctor. We have so many legal people in our family, many lawyers in the family, but hardly any doctor. Your elder sister has decided to follow your father's footsteps. So I think you should not follow everybody, but become a doctor, go abroad and become a big doctor. So I was very happy at that time to become a big doctor. Not that I realized what I was heading for, but I said, okay, I'll become a doctor. But then I got involved in many other extracurricular activities before the studies. I learned dancing and music and many things, played tabla and harmonium and did Manipuri dancing and became a girl guide. A lot of extracurricular activities I performed. So only when I came to 9th standard, I said I was really good in my studies and I decided that I will become a gynecologist. It was then I made up my mind that I will become a gynecologist.
You also said that in your family, educating women was the norm. Your
Correct.
mother was very well educated. So it was easy for you to pursue your passion.
Correct. That's why when I was only 6 years old, she told me I should become a doctor. When I didn't even realize what it meant to become a doctor.
Once you finished your medicine, was obstetrics and gynecology a natural choice because you were a woman, or was it something that attracted you to the specialty?
You see, at that time, ladies used to become either obstetrician or gynecologist or a pediatrician or anesthesiologist.
Yes.
And so I chose to become a gynecologist then and have my independent practice rather than go for anesthesiology.
Yes. And I think at that point, you also told me once that you wanted to do something for the cause of women. So you thought that it was nice to be in obstetrics and gynec because that's how you could help to uplift women in a way, looking up to them.
Because I always felt that I being a woman, I must do something for the health of the woman and for her upliftment whenever it was possible for me to do it.
Yeah. At the time when you were doing your residency, you found that a group of the infertile women or the couple was something which was not neglected, but there wasn't much to offer them because in those days, in 1960s, there weren't many technological advances. They were the depressed lot, the ostracized people, and I think that prompted you to go to UK to study further in infertility.
Correct. You see, at way back, almost in 1960s, that means about 60 years ago, the fertility treatment in India was absolutely in its infancy. We were told endometriosis never exists in India. It's only the disease of the Western world. If there were any masses, it was only tuberculosis and not an endometriosis. If the women had amenorrhea, either that was because of TB or because their uterus was very infantile. So there was hardly any treatment being offered. Dr. Shirodkar was the only one at that time who used to do tuboplasty. Otherwise, there was not much to offer. And in Europe and in US at that time, infertility was coming up as a specialty. And all teaching hospitals had infertility clinics. And I felt very bad for all those women who used to sit in my OPDs when I was a resident and, coming week after week and longing to become pregnant, ready to take any treatment that we offered. And I felt that I must do something for them. So I decided that after my post-graduation, I should go to UK and learn a little bit about infertility.
So can you tell me some of your UK experiences? In those 3 years that you spent in the UK, you also did your MRCOG at that time.
Yes. So the main purpose of my going was to learn infertility, and I got opportunity to learn. I learned endocrine vaginal cytology. I learned how to take smear, how to stain it with Giemsa stain and Harris-hematoxylin, look at the karyopyknotic index and diagnose ovulation and corpus luteum deficiency. I learned how to, diagnose ovulation with fertility thermometer and with the help of cervical mucus. I learned how to give clomiphene citrate treatment, gonadotropin treatment, and I learned whatever was the reproductive endocrinology which was happening, like hyperprolactinemia and hypogonadism, etc. So I learned quite a bit while I was in UK. And then, of course, I did my MRCOG. So when I came back from England, I carried with me some bromocriptine tablets, these clomiphene tablets. I brought those fertility thermometers with me. I brought those Harris-hematoxylin and the Giemsa stains with me. And I set up a small laboratory in the balcony of my consulting room and started doing vaginal cytology and started monitoring ovulation on the patient.
Okay. viewers may not know, but at the same time, in another part of United Kingdom, in Birmingham, was another young doctor from India,
Correct.
Dr. Meru Hansotia,
Yes.
who then became a very good friend and a business partner with Dr. Sadhna Desai. Madam, can you tell us some of your reminiscences with Dr. Hansotia? Because we know her as a very dynamic woman. We have seen her work not only in ART but also at the FOGSI level.
Okay. So Dr. Hansotia was a very dear friend of mine. We became friends when we were doing our registrar's post in Varia Hospital.
Okay.
We studied together to do our MD in gynecology, and we decided that we will go abroad for further studies also. So we went almost at the same time to UK. So while I was in UK, we both of us were in constant touch with each other,
Okay.
and both had common interests. So we decided that since she was also interested in fertility and I was doing the same, we said that when we come back, we will start our clinic called as Fertility Clinic together, and started an IVF treatment together, first time in Bombay.
Yes. When you returned back in 1969, you told me that most of the seniors discouraged you from fertility practice,
Correct.
not only because the equipment was not there, but there was no logistic support. But the two of you started from scratch. And I wanted to share what you told me the other day. They may sound as funny episodes now, but at that point, they were really very, very scary episodes when you all started your fertility clinic. The electrical backup that you told me, the
Yeah,
story.
but that was when we were doing our IVF treatment. That was the time we had that some experiences which were worth narrating because it was very funny. See, when we started our practice, we were only doing the monitoring the cycles and doing the induction of ovulation for amenorrhea, hyperprolactinemia and all that. After 5 years, I went to US and learned laparoscopy and brought all the laparoscopic equipment with me and started doing laparoscopy in St. George's Hospital, where I was associate professor, first assistant and then associate professor, and then in Mumbai Hospital also. So when the birth of the first IVF baby was, everybody came to know, our patients pressurized us to start an IVF. Now when we thought of starting an IVF, all our seniors discouraged us. They told us, hey, look, it was okay, you did some good infertility practice. But for doing IVF, you require a highly sophisticated culture laboratory, a good animal house to do your experiments. So this is just not possible in India. So you forget about it and you keep on doing what good work you are doing.
Yeah.
But both Dr. Hansotia and myself were very keen to try out and see, let's learn and see whether it is possible or not. And that is how we went to learn IVF in Australia, Melbourne.
You also said that when you had your embryologist doing experiments on the mice.
Correct. So when I went to Melbourne, we learned how to do mice experiments to see whether the culture media works or not, learned how to distill water 3 times, learned how to prepare culture medium, learned how to do ovum pickup through the laparoscope. Then we learned how the egg looks under the microscope and how the embryo looks under the microscope. So we were very excited. And we said, it's not so difficult because we have learned. We used to keep on writing down the notes and to keep on narrating whatever we have learned to each other, so that we knew that we have learned enough to start the IVF while going back to India. So we brought all the equipments required for IVF and we came back to India and started IVF.
Yes.
So when we came back with all the equipments, we started our IVF, trying out whether we can work on IVF treatment or not. So we had to prepare our own media. So we set up a distillery center and started distilling water, preparing our own culture medium, and then we had to do mice experiment for seeing whether the culture medium that we prepared works or not. Then we therefore had to have an animal house. We didn't have animal house, so we got those Swiss mice from Hafkin Institute, and we started breeding them in our garage. And with the petrol smell, sometimes these mice would breed and sometimes they would not breed. So my then biologist said that I will take these mice in my air-conditioned bedroom and breed them. So this was working very well till one fine day his mother found out that he was breeding mice in his bedroom, and she was very allergic to mice. So she threatened to throw him out with the mice if he did any breeding of mice in her house. So it was a little bit of a big thing, because we had to really struggle to do IVF, breed mice without having any animal house with us.
Yes. I mean, those days, 50 years back, I mean, even now things are so difficult about having generator backup and such things. And those days, how did you all manage all these things?
So the IVF lab was created in 550 square foot area. We didn't have money. All our money was spent in buying equipments and establishing. Dr. Hansotia's husband, Mr. Dara Hansotia, was managing all our equipment because he was an engineer, and he helped us a lot in setting up this IVF lab. So he said, you must have a backup and we must have a generator. Now the society didn't have a generator, so we had to have a small generator for our IVF lab. And this generator we had installed in the compound just below our flat. And that was a very old generator, very cheap generator we had, and we had to put diesel and turn the handle in case the electricity would go. But luckily in Bombay, electricity failures are rare.
Yes.
But it so happened that one day there was some road repair and the electricity of our building was switched off. There was no light. Everybody was in dark. So we ran, took some diesel, poured diesel, and we turned the handle. And the generator started with a big bang and started rattling very loudly, and it was kept very close to the wall of our building so that nobody should disturb it. So the whole building started shaking, and all the residents thought that the house was coming down, the building was coming down, and they all ran on the street till they found out that it was our generator that was making a noise and shaking the building. So the secretary of the building was very angry with us and he threatened that they will close our IVF lab if we are going to keep that generator in that building.
I think these stories can go on for a while, but let's take a break. And when we come back from the break, let's join Dr. Sadhana Desai on her journey in ART and in various different organizations after the break.
Caring for life has always been the guiding purpose of everything we do at Cipla. We constantly work towards ensuring access to high quality and affordable medicines. We've been trusted by healthcare professionals and patients across geographies for more than 8 decades. Cipla began its journey in women's health in India in 1979. Since our very first launch, we've bbeen tireless in our efforts towards meeting the growing needs of women's health in India. You and Cipla, together, we have come a long way, creating the future and continuing the legacy with your trusted partner in providing accessibility to high quality and innovative products with patient centricity at our core for a healthy womanhood.
Welcome back after the break. You are with me in season 2 of the Living Legends, brought to you by Science Integra and Cipla. We are chatting with our first guest of this season, Dr. Sadhna Desai. As Madam, I realized that once you started your fertility practice, you were immersed in the treatment and you decided very consciously to take a break from all other organizational activities.
Correct.
So even after being in the MOGS, in the committee for 7 years, you stepped back. One is to allow your partner to progress ahead so that you could manage the fort and the patients and the practice. I think that is very, very commendable in this day and age.
Because somebody had to take care, teach others. Everybody was interested to learn IVF because that time in India only private doctors were interested in doing IVF and nobody had animal house.
Yes.
No one had all the facilities. So they thought that it is now possible in India to have IVF. So I devoted many times in giving lectures and doing workshops and seminars and all. Only in the year 1997, that means almost after 35 years of my practice, Dr. D.K. Tak, my good
Yes.
friend,
Yes.
told me that I should start doing some other activities in FOGSI as well.
Yes.
And that is how I entered into the FOGSI's activity, and I became vice president. Then I became chairman of the infertility committee for 5 years and ultimately became the president.
Yes. And when you took over as FOGSI president, most of us expected you to project fertility. But you projected, your theme of the year was population stabilization through women's empowerment. So you concentrated on contraceptives, on rural obstetrics. So that was something very different, I think a different personality of Dr. Desai. So tell me some of the highlights of your years.
See, I will tell you. So when I became a president of FOGSI, I had to forget what was my personal interest and infertile patients and upliftment of infertile patients. I had to think of women of the nation, India. And that time, the government was facing problems in 2 aspects: extra population, overpopulation. So FOGSI, as a FOGSI, we had to help government in sending awareness about the population stabilization. And the other problem was, for years together, they were trying to bring down maternal mortality.
Yes.
And that was a big issue. Small women were dying, especially in rural areas. They were dying because proper health was not available. So I thought, for 1 year of my FOGSI president, if little bit I could do to the upliftment of those rural women who are dying, if I can do something, it's a drop in the ocean, it may be worth doing it rather than pursuing infertility. So that is how I took up this subject. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know much, being an infertility specialist, either about the contraception nor especially about the rural women's health, who was taking care of it. I was told that 49% of the women had deliveries in FRUs and CWC. Okay. So I didn't know all these names. I would ask Dr. Tang, what does this FRU mean? What does this terms, all these means, how they do it? So Dr. Tak was very patient and he really explained to me what it was. So then I decided, with help of Dr. Prakash Bhatt, to have one conference on rural obstetrics. And I called many doctors, NGOs for that. And it was a great success. It was held in Surat, and our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, inaugurated our conference. And in that I came across a lot of NGOs. And I found out that the best way FOGSI can contribute government in reducing mortality in the rural area was training those doctors, MBBS doctors working in the government and taking care of deliveries who didn't know anything about obstetrics. So an idea was put in that FOGSI should do the training of the MBBS doctors working in rural areas in emergency obstetric care. And with the help of JAPICO, MacArthur Foundation, UNICEF, and Mr. Malvankar, who helped me draw the project and carry out a 2-year project on EMOC training. And we took the help of the Vellore Medical College, and we set up an EMOC program for FOGSI, which was approved by the Ministry of Health and Family Planning of Government of India. And for the first time, FOGSI had public-private relationship with Government of India to train 2,000 MBBS government doctors working in the rural area in emergency obstetric care. And all the professors, and in all the states, all the professors and associate professors and lecturers and district officer gynecologists all helped me to set up the centers. And this project was for 5 years. But the government extended it because it was a very successful program, and it went on till 2017. And after 2017, government has now taken over because all the UN indicators have suggested that by training these doctors, maternal mortality in rural area does go down. And so now government has taken up its own policy to train these doctors in EMOC in rural areas.
I think this is really very, very commendable, because as obstetricians, I think maternal mortality was one of the indicators of how much we are working towards our rural women, and the drop in the maternal mortality, I think, is a great, great success for all of us, for FOGSI. And as Madam said, the first private public enterprise which was so successful that the Government of India decided to take over the training for the rest of the project. I think today, and when we talk on training, we have your first official student, Brigadier R.K. Sharma, who left the army for a year, took a break, was with you for a year for training in fertility, and he has some fond memories and really appreciative words for you. So let's have Brigadier Sharma on the screen, please.
Dear friends, greeting from Brigadier R.K. Sharma, who had the privilege of getting one-to-one training from Dr. Sadhana Desai way back in 1994. She is a legend known all over the world, and talking about her is like showing a lamp to the sun. She is a teacher par excellence, which most of you know. But today, I want to share few facets of her personality which make her beyond every comparison. Firstly, she is a woman of substance and few words, and has got a great human heart. Getting one-to-one training from her is a privilege of selected few, because she is very particular about ethics, sincerity, and hard work. I still fondly remember her love and affection for all her students and her close observation and guidance for their betterment. I want to cite few such incidences. I remember her picking up cherries from the top of the cake, cleaning with her own hand and giving it to me, knowing that I was a vegetarian and I would not be eating the cake. And that love and affection is always remembered by me. One day, I was standing at the bus stand waiting for the bus to go to Mumbai hospital. Suddenly, I saw one Mercedes stopping and her driver came out and asked me that Madam has called me. She gave me a lift up to the Mumbai hospital, which is fondly remembered and resonates in my heart till today. She observed all my professional and academic activities during my 1 year stay with her, and when I was to leave after my training, she mentioned everything in minutest detail, including my use of hospital library in all my spare time. She knew that I was staying alone without my family and would have problem in preparing meals. So she always took me along with her other students wherever she was invited, whether it was academic or a social meet. After me, she trained many other gynecologists from Indian Armed Forces and helped us in establishment of the first IVF center in the government setup in India at Army Hospital R&R, and in recognition of her contribution to the armed forces, she was given an honorary rank of a brigadier by Indian Army, which very few civilians in India would have it. There are many other facets of Madam which will take a whole lifetime to describe. I feel privileged to be her first student.
Once you had finished your FOGSI presidentship, you were also getting involved in the ISAR activities. ISAR was opening up, lots of doctors were starting their fertility centers, so centers were mushrooming across the length and breadth of India. You took up as ISAR president, I think in the year 2008-2009. What were your highlights of your ISAR presidential year, madam?
When I became president of ISAR, some of my students were already doing a good IVF practice, and they were mushrooming and doing very good work all over India. And they all wanted to present their work in ISAR because that was the only good association for the infertility people who are doctors who wanted to do IVF. So since they wanted to show their work, ISAR was holding only one national conference per year, and everybody did not get a platform. So I felt that we must encourage young infertility specialists to showcase their work so that we can also learn from them if they can showcase. But if they don't get opportunity, they can't work. So I decided that we should decentralize ISAR's activities by having a different, in every state, having a chapters of ISAR. And they also wanted to come and become president, vice president. Everybody cannot become vice president and president of the society. So I thought, let them be president and vice president or chairperson or vice chairperson of the chapters from each state, and they can do their activity and have meetings. So that is why I thought that everybody should get opportunity to come up in life.
Yeah, I think that was a brilliant idea of decentralizing academic activities, because over the years, almost 10 years later, we have every state which has a chapter and they're all doing fantastic academic programs and still being under the big umbrella of ISAR, which is really very fantastic. And as you said, lots of people get an opportunity to showcase their leadership at the state level, become chairpersons, become secretaries, and I think some of them can then move up. You have conducted a large number of very successful conferences, and I think you have one person to thank in your group, Dr. Prema Kania. She has not only been your professional colleague, but she has also been the person behind the scene in these hugely successful conferences. Today, I requested Dr. Prema to say a few words on behalf of all your colleagues at the Bombay Hospital. So let's have Prema speak on behalf of all of them. Can we have Dr. Prema's video, please, on the screen?
Ameet, you asked me to say a few words on Dr. Desai. I have also Dr. Tejasvi Kamble with me, who is clinical associate assistant consultant in Mumbai Hospital with us. And we both agree that she is a very different person. She is, to me personally, she is a friend, philosopher and guide. I have learnt a lot from her. Her dedication to work, the ability to work hard and to continue that same ability through the years. I have seen her operate 18-20 patients on a day, come back at 3 o'clock in the morning for an obstetric call, do a cesarean, go back, and of course resume her normal work the next day in the same pattern and with the same dedication and sincerity and same enthusiasm, which is really, really unique and extremely inspiring.
After these very poignant words from Dr. Prema, let's take a break. Don't go anywhere, because after the break, we will join Dr. Sadhana Desai through her various achievements and what she does in COVID times. After the break.
Caring for life has always been the guiding purpose of everything we do at Cipla. We constantly work towards ensuring access to high quality and affordable medicines. We've been trusted by healthcare professionals and patients across geographies for more than 8 decades. Cipla began its journey in women's health in India in 1979. Since our very first launch, we've been tireless in our efforts towards meeting the growing needs of women's health in India. You and Cipla, together, we have come a long way, creating the future and continuing the legacy with your trusted partner in providing accessibility to high quality and innovative products with patient centricity at our core for a healthy womanhood.
Welcome back after the break in our last session of this episode of Living Legends. We are in conversation with Dr. Sadhana Desai. Madam, you start in the ISAR, we did a lot for the clinicians, but you also realized the need to have training for the embryologist. So can you tell us something on the embryology training course that you started?
See, when I became president of ISAR, I wanted to do something so that our IVF centers all over India do good work and our name of ISAR goes in the international map. And what was happening was that a lot of gynecologists were ready to do IVF, but there was a dearth of embryologists, and they had to borrow one embryologist. 5 centers used to borrow. That was not a correct way of treating the patient. So I thought ISAR as a body if we can start training embryologists, and if they, all the young gynecologists doing IVF get the individually, they get a embryologist for their own center, they would fare much better. So there was a need for training the embryologists, and as an ISAR body, whatever money that I had gathered during my ISAR presidential year, because I had done one conference, focus conference on the ovary, international conference, and we had a lot of income out of it. So I told the managing committee that the income of this conference should go in the training of the embryologists. So for training purpose, we had to have an affiliation. So I approached Dr. Satish Adiga from Manipal University, who is doing a very good teaching work for embryologists, and he agreed to train our embryologists. So we affiliated ourselves with the Manipal University and Manipal Medical College, its embryology division, and along with that help, we started 13 months course in clinical embryology. And this course is doing quite well and helping the embryologists. Now many people are also training. Things are changing over the year, but that 10 years ago, that course was of great help.
Yes, and it is a need of the hour even to this date, because I think scores of embryologists are trained in that course, but there are so many centers opening every year that there is always going to be a shortage of embryologists. I think that was something which really helped IVF doctors to have a good teamwork, because they would not have to rely on some embryologists coming down from some major city and working with them.
So during that year, I also started having liaison with the other international IVF societies like SUA and ASRM, and then we started representing, ISAR was being represented at IFFS conference, and then later on in ASRM and SUA as well.
Yeah, I think we are all going through these terrible pandemic times when we are away from our patients, from our families, from our friends. So Dr. Desai, what is that you miss in these COVID times?
I am the one who loves traveling, and I am missing traveling. You sit at home or go to the clinic. These are only two activities, and therefore it is not my lifestyle. So I feel as if I am caged. This is number one. Number two, I miss our medical conferences. Yeah. That atmosphere that we used to have, that is missing. You can't. The main purpose of having conferences, we interact with delegates.
Fellowship of Ameet.
Yeah. So when we have this on the Zoom conferences, you only interact with the speaker. We don't interact with the delegates, and that is what I really miss. I think this is the main thing that I
can tell you one episode which had a very long lasting impression on me. This is going back around 15 years back, madam. You may remember we were 3 IVF specialists who were chosen to represent India in Athens, in Greece, for the birth of the millionth baby in IVF. And after the formalities were over, we had one day before we flew out in the night to return back to Mumbai. And the two of us decided to go island hopping from Athens. And I still remember at 5 o'clock in the morning, you were all dressed, ready with your walking shoes. And I could see the enthusiasm, the childlike enthusiasm on your face. And you had 2 picnic baskets which you got ready from the hotel concierge. He had packed the best of breakfast that they could do at 5 o'clock. And both of us then took a taxi, went to the port. Unfortunately, we couldn't go very far because we had not booked our tickets. But at that time, I realized that you were so enthusiastic about travel and to see new places, meet new people. You took me to the local markets and you said, let's move and let's see if we can buy some local stuff to take back home. So I have fond memories. I didn't know you so well then. Those were one of our first few interactions, but you really gelled so well despite the large amount of difference that was there in our ages, in our experiences. But you were more enthusiastic than me in going around. We came back in the evening, barely managed to take our flight, and we came back home. So yes, we all miss meeting people, going to different places and the conferences. But
and meeting friends, your students and all, which we never meet otherwise.
yes. I think those days will also come back, I'm sure.
I hope they come back.
But in this day and age, do you have any message for those hundreds of young doctors in our specialty, particularly those who are looking to take up infertility as a special training? Any message for them? Any guidance or advice to them?
What I normally feel and I want to tell is everybody who wants to come up in life, they should have a goal, a dream, what they want to become. Once they decide what they want to do in life, they should plan it out, how they should execute it, and work very hard. If they work very hard, they will enjoy because it is their subject for which they are working hard, and I'm sure they will all succeed if they work hard in the subject in which they are taking interest. Never take defeat for worry about the defeat. You have to work for success and you get the success.
Perfect. I think you have said it all. I introduced our today's guest as somebody who's perpetually cheerful. I happened to be present when she gave her acceptance speech at the FOGSI Presidential Congress. And I quote, "I carry with me a lifetime of experiences which have shaped my thoughts on people and medicine, and how our wonderful profession binds them together. So it's her inner peace, her inner joy, be it in the midnight when she delivers a baby or when she announces the good news to a couple that they are on their way to parenthood. I think that shows up on her face, and that is not only her external cheerfulness, that also explains her inner exuberance. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on this episode, and thank you, Dr. Sadhna Desai, for having graciously accepted our invitation.
Thank you very much.
See you, ladies and gentlemen, next Sunday, every Sunday at 11 a.m. to meet many more of our living legends. Have a safe Sunday, take care, and be with us next week. Thank you.